Hello everybody, thank you for watching my video, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe and comment. First as King of the Franks and then as Holy Roman Emperor, Charlemagne formed far-reaching diplomatic ties as widespread as from the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of Mercia and Northumbria to the Byzantine and Persian empires in the east. One of his most famous contacts was King Offa of Mercia, who ruled from 757 to 796. This is the same King Offa who built Offa's Dyke. Initially on good terms with Charles, Offa seems to have offended him somewhat by proposing a marriage between his son and Charles's daughter. Contact was broken off between the two before matters were eventually patched up enough for the two to make a peace treaty shortly before Offa died. One of Charles's most powerful allies was the Persian king Harun al-Rashid, with whom he was on excellent terms with. Ambassadors were sent between the two rulers frequently, and Harun sent Charles costly gifts, including robes, spices, and less practically, an elephant. According to the chronicler Einhard, Charles had specifically asked for the elephant, but Einhard also states it was Harun's one and only elephant, which is simply not true. So Einhard's credibility does go through the floor here in this particular tale. Harun, as I say, would have had more than one elephant. Charles's ambassadors would have been kept extremely busy in the east. On the journey to meet Harun, the ambassadors had also been met by the Patriarch of Jerusalem, who, as a token of goodwill towards Charles, had handed them the keys of the Holy Sepulchre as a show of respect. Charles received the keys before he became Holy Roman Emperor, so his growing stature is now already clearly recognizable. As I have mentioned elsewhere, there was a complicated relationship between the Holy Roman Empire in the west and the Byzantine Empire in the east. However, Charles managed to maintain a reasonable relationship with his counterparts in the east. Any suspicions the Byzantines had of Charles did not stop them from trying to seek alliances with him, and in fact, 4 consecutive Byzantine rulers did such a thing. The first contact came from the Empress Irene, who proposed marriage between herself and Charles. Irene's position was on extremely shaky ground, as she had usurped the throne and blinded and killed her own son, Constantine VI. A marriage with Charles would help secure her position somewhat, although it never came to pass, and she died in exile in 803. The emperors that followed Irene included her successor Nikephoros I, and he did not give up on the idea of an alliance with Charles either. And even after Charles died in 814, Leo V continued to seek good relations with the West by allying himself with Charles's son and successor, Louis the Pious. The Byzantines continued to remain suspicious of Charles, as his status as Holy Roman Emperor potentially threatened their own stance of considering themselves as the true continuation of the Roman Empire that had fallen in the West in the 5th century. However, they were pragmatic enough to realize that Charles was a man to take seriously. However, a saying at the time gives a good indication of how Byzantine attitudes remained despite their sought-after alliances with Charles. The saying goes, if a Frank is your friend, then clearly he is not your neighbour. Certainly there was very little trust between the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire. Charles's first marriage did not last long. around a year. It's unclear why he wanted the marriage ended, but it did, and his second marriage to a woman named Hildegard proved to be far more successful, and with her he produced a number of children, including his own eventual successor, Louis the Pious. He had two further marriages after Hildegard died, one to a woman named Fastrada, with whom he had two daughters, and his final marriage to a woman named Liutgard. He also kept a number of concubines, with whom he had a host of children with. Charles's mother was a woman by the name of Bertrada. With her he seems to have had a good relationship with, and she lived a long life, living possibly as long as into her 70s. But 783 was a sad year for Charles, as his mother and second wife Hildegard both died within a short period of each other. Bertrada's death was mourned by her son, and she was buried with great ceremony at Saint Denis, where she was buried alongside her husband, Pepin, Charles's father. Charles had one sister who was named Gisela. She was a very pious woman who, it's said, dedicated her life to God from a young age. She died around 810 in a nunnery. One of Charles's priorities when it came to his family was the education of his children, which he oversaw himself, and there was as much emphasis on his daughter's education as there was on his son's, although what the boys and girls were taught varied as they grew older. They were both taught to read and write, but as they got older, the educations began to change. Emphasis on the boys' learning moved on to how to ride horses and hunt, whilst the girls learned more domesticated skills like spinning and weaving. Charles was quite the family man. For all his accomplishments as a military leader and great king, he was not exempt from the harsh realities of life in 9th century Europe, and one of those realities was premature death. Charles lost 3 of his children before his own passing in 814. He was fond of all of his children, including those he had with his concubines, and he took the news of each death of the 3 children that passed away badly, with Einhard claiming he shed tears profusely.